Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
and Liz.
And I think I just confused Diva because I took an extra long pause before introducing the podcast. But just so everybody knows, the reason I do that is sometimes when I go to be like, hey, Twisted listeners, I go, I take like a deep breath. And you can hear it on the recording, and it's like so close to the words that I can't edit it out. So now I take a deep breath, and then I hold it for a moment, and then I speak, so I can edit it
Leaving
into
me
a
in
nice.
suspense.
Yeah, but it makes
Yeah.
for nice, smooth transitions.
Yeah.
Anyway, hi guys, we're back. Another week, another
Yes.
round of another new topic. Diva chose this one. It's most prolific serial killers because she felt that it felt very American.
Yes, it's a patriotic topic because it's specifically the most prolific serial killers of the United States.
Yes, sorry, that's what I should have said.
Yeah, they're setting like U.S. records for, and also just general. I feel like the record should be not just prolific serial killers. It should be like biggest pieces of shit, gold medals in
Yes.
U.S. history.
Yeah. Did you know there were
get them.
2 mass shootings yesterday?
Oh no! Isn't that funny? How I don't even know.
Yeah,
Like,
they're so
what?
common now.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty fucking crazy. Anyway, thought I'd point that out because America, happy 4th of July, everybody. We put a new Patreon up last week. If you'd like to join us there, it's patreon.com/twistedlisters. Our TikTok is just at Twisted Listers. If you'd like to join us on Instagram, which is probably our most popular platform, you can do that at.
Yeah. At Twisted Listers PCast.
If you'd like to send us an email with case suggestions or just to say hello, as many of you do, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to check out our website, that sweet little thing is located at
twistedlisterspod.com. Buy a sticker.
Buy a sticker. Do it, guys. You know you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're a patron, you already have them. But if you're not a patron and you don't feel like giving us a whopping $1 a month, then just buy a sticker. One-time purchase.
Exactly. Or buy like 6 stickers. Be nice.
Yeah, buy 10.
Be
We have
generous.
a lot. So
yeah.
Actually, my most recent ones, we didn't put them through because they were too pixelated. So I have to get the original art from our lovely friend and then put them through again.
Okay.
Anyway, anything we should talk about before these are long, so I feel like we should cut the shit.
These are king size, extra chunky, extra beefy.
Yes. Big and crazy.
Very large. Yeah.
Also, the next 2 nights are going to really suck because I live in an area where fireworks are just the best thing that anybody I live near has ever dealt with or had in their whole lives. And so they're just going to go apeshit, which I'm not stoked on. So
yeah, we already got some fireworks this weekend and I was like, why? Like, it is not that day.
Oh man, in this neighborhood, like it's not every night, but it starts in like mid-June and it's like every 3 or 4 days. And then as it gets closer to the 4th, it's like every single night. So
nice.
Anyway, that's that. You chose the topic, so I go first, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I'm doing a meaty bitch. I am doing Donald Pee Wee Gaskins.
Yeah, when I wrote this on the list, I was like, this feels like the 4th of July, like, man. Like, there's no more murking of a man.
No, there's not. This man, holy shit. I want to start this by saying that there is definitely some arguments about whether or not he killed as many people as he claims to. He killed a fuck ton of people regardless, and I don't see any reason to not believe him. You know, some serial killers like to claim things they didn't do, but what he says, the way he says he does these things, I just feel like he wasn't lying. So I'm going to start there. So this motherfucker, Pee Wee Gaskins, was born in 1933 in Florence County, South Carolina. He had a terrible childhood, which is shocking, I know. He was born to a single mother. He never met his father or even knew what his name was. She continued to have like a rotating docket of boyfriends, each of whom was at best neglectful. Do dockets rotate? I don't think that was a good way of putting that. In any case, a docket, they don't rotate. Anyway, she had a lot of boyfriends. None of
Okay.
them stuck around. At best, they were neglectful towards poor Donald, and at worst, they would be abusive. Donald was extremely small his whole life, so was given the nickname Pee Wee when he was very young, and it stuck. He was also referred to as Junior Parrot until he was 13, as that was his mother's last name, Parrot.
Okay.
His mother finally remarried when he was around 10 or so, and he took his stepdad's last name of Gaskins. This marriage resulted in 4 more children, and his stepfather beat every single one of the children, quote, for practice, as Pee Wee would later
Oh,
say.
wow.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Nice.
He also wrote like this really weird autobiography, and he said like, "Oh, I wasn't abused. I wouldn't say I was abused, but it's like, bro, you literally just said like that he beat you. That is abuse. I don't know what to tell you." But
Sounds
I'm also
really
not surprised.
abuse-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not super surprised that this guy doesn't know what abuse is or define that as abuse. But anyway,
Right, right.
before his mother married, when he was about 3 years old, Pee Wee drank a bottle of kerosene, which caused him to have seizures for many years. And who knows what else it did to his body and mind. I know he had stomach and like head issues all through his life,
Mhm.
headaches, stomach aches, issues like that. I'm going to
Yeah,
say
you
it
should
probably came
not
from drinking
drink
kerosene.
that.
No,
Yeah, I shouldn't
no,
do it.
no. So, we're setting the scene here. Absent, uncaring mother, physical and mental trauma brought on by an early accident, lack of a father figure, and then when he has one, it's an abusive one. So things are not looking great here for Pee Wee. By the time Pee Wee was 10, he had, an anger inside of him that he described as feeling like, quote, a ball of molten lead rolling around in my guts and up my spine into my head.
Ooh,
hmm hmm
okay.
And the only way to make himself feel better was to engage in criminal activity. When he was 11, sorry about that, guys. When he was 11, he dropped out of school to work on cars, as he was naturally good at that. And he met 2 other boys around his age who also wanted to get into trouble. They dubbed themselves the quote trouble trio and would do everything from stealing to auto theft and robbery. Finally, they went too far and raped one of their own sisters. So one of these 2 boys gang raped his own sister with Pee Wee and
Oh.
another boy. And she immediately told on them. They didn't get into trouble with the law. However, the parents strung them up by their wrists in a garage and beat them bloody with leather straps.
Woo. All right.
Yes.
This is a place and time with some people.
Yes. One of the kids avoided this because his father, who was actually a criminal that had kind of like taught them how to do these things, defended him by brandishing a shotgun at anybody who tried to do this to him.
All
So,
right.
anyway, yeah. So, street justice, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
He then kind of broke off from these 2 other kids and started doing some peeping. So, he's a peeping Tom. And in 1946, at around the age of 13, he got caught by a girl who knew him and saw him peeping on her. And she came out of her house with a hatchet. He wrestled it away from her and beat her with it, cutting her arms and head. She later told the police, and off he went to, quote, reformatory school, where
Mhm.
later he said he really learned how to be a criminal. He was
Yes.
also regularly raped by older, bigger boys in the school, and even allowed it in return for protection after being gang raped by 20 or so of them on his second night there.
Oh
So
my
the horrors
God.
continue for Pee Wee. Yeah. So he
Yeah, and also
basically like,
reformatory school is a recipe is like serial killer factory.
I mean, this is what's happening. They're gang raping each other. It's like insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
hmm So he's like willingly like somebody's girlfriend in return for like
Mhm.
protection from that ever happening again, right?
Yeah.
So obviously he hated being in this school and escaped 3 different times. Each time he was caught, beaten, and forced into a certain period of hard labor as punishment. Finally, when he was 18, he was released for good, or I should say unleashed into the world, more like it. During
Mhm.
his last escape right before he turned 18, he met and married a 13-year-old girl in a traveling circus. And
Whoa.
yeah. hmm And for a short time, attempted to go straight once released from the school. Unfortunately, he couldn't keep his shit together, and he started burning barns for insurance money. And when 2 girls called him out for it at a local bar, kind of like making fun of him, he hit one of them in the head with a hammer. Yes.
So he's in a bar with a hammer.
Yeah, apparently. Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm. He might have gone home and got the hammer and come back. My brother did that once to a guy that punched him in the face. He went
Oh,
back to the house, got a table leg, and hit the guy with it. And I was like, my brother's a serial killer.
I mean, a table leg is more like impromptu crime of passion. A hammer is like really
Yeah.
serious. Yeah.
I mean, he went home and got the table leg. Also, like,
Yeah.
what do you do with the table? I don't know.
Yeah. Just fuck that table, I guess. Who cares?
Brother's a weird guy. Anyway, so he ended up in court for attempted murder and also the arson. And after striking a deal with the prosecution, he was given 5 years in prison because he basically said they told him like, we'll give you 15 months if you agree to this, that, and the other. And he agreed to it, but he didn't get the papers signed. And they're like, thank you so
Mm,
much for your confession. Here's 5 fucking years in prison. So this is his first time in real adult prison because he was
okay.
always underage to this point.
Yeah.
So things started much the same here as Pee Wee obviously wasn't a large man. He came in between 5'4" and 5'5" tops and weighing about 130 pounds.
Okay.
So at first, he was someone's bottom until he made friends with the biggest, scariest man in the prison, a man named Hazel Brazel. So the dude's name was Hazel, and you weren't
Hmm.
allowed to call him that or he'd fuck you up.
That
So,
sounds right. Yeah.
yeah. So what Pee Wee did here was he befriended Hazel and then he fucking killed him. He waited
Whoa.
till Hazel was on the toilet and he slit his fucking throat.
Okay.
And he admitted to doing it, but said it was during a fight. So he bargained down for a manslaughter charge and became what they called a power man in prison, no longer having to fear anyone and now being called Pee Wee as a form of respect. So he
So
killed the biggest
yeah.
guy in prison and became like a power
And
man.
he did that to get like clout, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he used his like smarts because he was a pretty smart dude. Like he worked on cars, he could like tinker with stuff. And he used his smarts to like convince this guy that they were like friends, and then he fucking murdered him. So this is kind of what little guys have to do. They got to be smart, they got to be quick-witted. So in 1955, at the age of 22, Pee Wee found out that his wife was divorcing him. So he did what any, normal guy would do and escaped prison to go find her in her traveling carnival. Instead of finding her, the divorce went through, and he fell in love with another girl from the carnival scene and quickly married her. About a month later, he ditched her for a contortionist, also in the traveling circus
He's
scene, because
dating up the whole carnival.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's just fucking whoring around in the carnival circuit, and
Oh,
also married this woman. Turns out this lady, Betty Gates, had a brother in another state who was being held in prison and needed
huh.
help, needed her to go see him. So Pee Wee stole a car. Remember, he's on the lam still. He stole a
Right.
car, took her there, even went to visit her brother in prison, giving him a carton of cigarettes. So he went because she couldn't go, apparently, and gave him
Oh
a
my
carton of
God.
cigarettes.
That's
When he
bold.
re- yeah. So when he returned to the hotel where they had been staying, both Betty and his stolen car were gone, and police soon arrived to arrest him for helping the man, later found to be Betty's actual husband, escape. So he
Oh
was
my
fucking
gosh.
duped by this contortionist. She
Oh,
convinced him to marry her and then got him to bust her husband out of prison, saying it was her brother. And
okay.
she had hidden a razor blade in the cigarettes. And apparently he didn't know about it.
Wow.
So police were like, we believe you. However, you have a fake ID on you and are, a wanted man. So back to prison he went. This stint in prison went way better for him. He even made friends with 3 mafia guys who taught him a lot. And in 1961, he was finally paroled, given a new suit and $20, and sent back to Florence County. He then
Okay.
went on the road with a reverend working as his assistant and was robbing homes and stealing from people the entire time.
There's
So
just something about
now,
the characters, like the carnival and the reverend. Like it's
yeah,
like a old movie, but
it's
like
fucking
also
crazy.
so American.
Yeah, it really is. So he
Yeah.
travels the country with these carnival folk, marrying multiple of them.
Hmm.
There's no divorces, by the way. So none of these are
Right,
really
right,
legal after the first one.
right.
And then he travels the country with a reverend. And this reverend is preaching the gospel and he's robbing people blind. And there's something very poetic about that and very fitting about that. And yes, very American about that. Now, another thing he also did while he was on the road with this reverend was he met and married a 17-year-old. And I think at this point he was 29. And
Ugh,
he even said,
okay.
like, yeah, he was like, she's a little old for me.
Oh God. Okay. Make it
Hmm.
worse. Try to make it
Yeah.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was then jailed for statutory rape of a 12-year-old while still married to the
Oh,
17-year-old. But
doesn't
literally,
sound that statutory. Sounds pretty regular to
it
me.
sounds like
But
rape. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think a 12-year-old can
okay.
even think they're
12. Yeah.
consenting to a 29-year-old.
No, no.
In any case, so he literally escaped out of the police car while on his way to court for that one and skipped town to North Carolina, where he met and, quote, married another 17-year-old. Because again,
Mm.
he's already married. You can't just keep marrying people without
The
divorce.
regular Jerry Lee Lewis here
He
too.
really is. He's a real piece of shit, just like that
Yeah.
piece of shit.
Yeah.
I hope you are burning in hell, Jerry Lee Lewis. P.S. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're dead.
Great balls of fire.
Yeah, I hope. We can hope. I hope that was
Yeah.
like, you know. Uh
Foreshadowing.
yes, exactly. So he then ditched her and went back to his third wife. I can't even keep track of which one that was. I think it was right
Oh
after
my
the
gosh.
contortionist.
Okay.
He got into a car chase with the third wife and ditched her in a swamp and then went back to the 17-year-old who then turned his ass in because he was wanted for the statutory rape of the 12-year-old
Oh my
and the
God.
chase. So for that rape and from running from the law, he got a total of 6 years. He did a few of them. He was paroled in 1968 and decided from then on that he wasn't going to go back to prison. And that didn't mean he was going to stop criming because he was
Right.
never going to stop criming. It just meant he
No.
wasn't going to leave witnesses.
Okay.
Yes. So he's out in 1968, and it takes about a year for his first truly horrific murder to take place. And this is the first one that's debated. A lot of the ones that are similar to this one are debated, but I think these happened. So
Okay.
September 1969, he picked up a blonde hitchhiker in Myrtle Beach. He hit on her. She laughed in his face. In return, he beat her unconscious, then raped and sodomized her, then mutilated her body. No, I
Mm,
shouldn't say her body. Then mutilated her while she was alive. Because it was her
mhm.
body that he mutilated, but it wasn't her body in the sense that we use the word.
Right,
She
right.
was still
Yeah.
alive. Then he dumped her in a swamp, bound, and let her drown to death.
Oh my God. It's so
Yes.
torturous.
Some sources say that he even disemboweled her, so it's pretty fucked up.
Mm,
This person has never been found or identified, hence the question of
right.
the veracity of this claim. But he claims that happened, and I have no reason to not believe him based on everything else he definitely did
Yeah.
throughout his life. So anyway, his first two victims outside of prison that are agreed, like he got, this is something we know he did, were his own fucking niece and her friend.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So he referred to the blonde hitchhiker and other similar crimes as his coastal murders and said
Okay.
that he felt better than he ever had in his entire life after killing her and many of the others. And then his 15-year-old niece and the ones like that he called his, I think, serious murders. So he's got the coastal
Okay.
murders and then serious murders. And I
Okay. So he's
think the
got
difference,
periods. It's like the blue period. It's like he's like got
no,
like
they're
artistic
concurrent.
eras. Oh, they're
The thing is
concurrent.
they're
Okay.
concurrent. They overlap. But I think the coastal ones are just random strangers and hitchhikers. And then the
Hmm.
serious murders are like people that he knows or is like
Gotcha.
associated with at
Okay.
least a little bit. So
Yeah.
his 15-year-old niece Janice and her 17-year-old friend were both beat to death by Pee Wee. He later said he did this because he was mad at them for using drugs, but it's thought that it was because he was trying to sexually assault them and they weren't having it.
That
He
sounds
off
more
Yeah,
like it.
more like, yeah, he's not beating to death like children because of a noble cause. That's not like a thing.
Right.
Yeah. He'd offered to pick them up from a party and instead of driving them home, took them to an abandoned house where he attempted to rape them. They fought back, and one of them even hit him on the head with a piece of wood, but then he beat them both unconscious, raped them both, and then he didn't actually beat them to death. He just beat them unconscious and then drowned
Mm.
them and
Mm.
buried them in separate locations.
Oh my God.
Mhm. Police suspected that he did this, but they had no bodies, no proof, so they had no case. 1 month later, he married. He did not marry this 13-year-old. He murdered a 13-year-old girl named Peggy Cutino, who was a member of a prominent political family.
Ooh.
Another murderer at the time, William Pierce, was convicted of her murder, but Pee Wee later confessed to it. And this is another one that's up for debate. Even though he considers that a serious murder and not a coastal murder, it's not for sure. But why would he say he did it, you know?
Why? Maybe it was high profile and people think that's why he was claiming it.
I mean, yeah, they're basically thinking that he's just like playing up what he did or didn't do, but like it made sense that he could have killed her and he said he
Hmm.
did, and the other guy was like, I didn't. So to
Right.
me, it's like he probably did. His next victim was his first black victim, which is important to note her race. 20-year-old Martha Dix, who hung
Okay.
around the garage where he was working because he was also working during this time. He had just married, quote unquote. I believe this is his fifth girlfriend. She was pregnant at the time in 1971. And for whatever reason, Martha was kind of obsessed with Pee Wee, which is really fucking gross, really fucking weird. She
Yeah.
kept telling people they were lovers, and he was kind of like not. I don't know if they were, but
Okay.
he didn't seem to mind that. But as soon as she started telling people that she was pregnant with his baby, he got pissed. And
Mm,
I don't know if he was pissed because she was saying it or because it was true or what. But
okay.
either way, he gave her a fatal dose of pills and dumped her dead body somewhere. He
Okay.
later said he did it because of her lying mouth, but I'm going to go ahead and call out racism
Hmm.
because there's more to it later. His
Okay.
little family then moved to Charleston, where he began selling stolen guns to various arms dealers, including a man named Eddie Brown, who had a beautiful black wife named Birdie.
Mm, okay.
Yes. When the Fed started sniffing around, Pee Wee decided Eddie was a rat, probably because he is black, and killed both him and his young wife, burying them near his niece Janice's body, which still had not been discovered.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So everywhere I read was like he killed them because he's a racist, and he made up the excuse that he thought they were rats.
Well, and also the time and place is like very ripe for that
Yes.
that
Yes.
he's from. Yeah.
Yes. He then moved to South Carolina, where he killed 3 more people, including 14-year-old hitchhiker and runaway Jackie Freeman. He held Jackie for 2 days, raping and otherwise torturing her the entire time before killing her. I can't find a lot on her death or her burial, but she is known as a victim, and he said that she
Okay.
was special. She was like special to him, which is why he held on to her. Which, like, dear God, the worst thing you could be to a serial killer is special.
Yeah, for
His
sure.
next, yeah. So this guy's just on a fucking tear, right? And it's like every year at this point, he's killing like 1 or 2. And then you have to remember that he's also doing these coastal murders, which were just random hitchhikers. None of
Right.
the bodies of his coastal murders have ever been found. He was very vague about where he dumped them. Sometimes he was more specific, but they still weren't found. And that's why there's a lot of like, you know, discussion and people don't really agree
Okay.
on whether or not he did this. But his next 2 victims that we know of are really fucking brutal. In 1973, he bought a hearse to make some money and used it to give people rides as well as like hauling items. His first passengers were 23-year-old Doreen Dempsey and her 2-year-old daughter, Robin Michelle. Now,
Ugh.
Pee Wee knew Doreen from the Carney days because apparently she was also a Carney. At this point, she was also an unwed mother, pregnant with her second child. And this is December 1973. So she's trying to leave town and accepts Pee Wee's offer to drive her to the local bus station. Now, as I mentioned, Pee Wee was a fucking racist. And when he heard that Doreen was pregnant by a black man, he became enraged and used this rage as an excuse to rape and murder both her and her fucking 2-year-old daughter.
Oh my God. So
Mm-hmm,
sick.
mm-hmm. This is big trigger warning right here.
Oh, here it is. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's
Now,
worse.
okay.
Yes.
Oh,
He beat Doreen to death with a hammer and then, here we go, raped and sodomized 2-year-old Robin before strangling her to death. And he later said that that rape was the best sex of his life.
Oh God.
I just want to call out that this guy is a fucking edgelord. So I feel like he says shit like that, like just to like seem cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, fuck this
Obviously.
guy. Yeah. This guy's just a fucking loser. So his next two murders were a guy named Johnny Sellers, who owed him about $1,000, and his girlfriend Jessie Judy, who he killed to throw police off the trail. He then shot car thief Horace Jones for hitting on his wife and buried him in a shallow grave. This was all in 1974. In
Okay.
1974, Pee Wee also first became a grandfather.
Oh,
Oh, he
cute.
said his life was the best it had ever been or would ever be in the midst of
Okay.
all of this.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Oh my God. And he's still killing along the coast. Right.
Okay.
So in 1975, I hate to say this, I don't ever want to compare you to this guy, but he uses a word that I feel is like a diva word. He said he
Oh
had his
no.
killingest year. It was
Killingest.
his
Yeah, I would say
killingest.
that.
That's a very, very diva phrase.
Yeah. I also like
So,
murdery, most
murdering.
murderific. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So this is his killingest year in 1975, which is pretty fucking crazy considering the list I just rattled through,
Yeah, like he
right?
was building up to more.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this year starts with some coastal murders, three hippies from Oregon whose van had broken down. He said he would help them with their van, then took them to the woods. It was a man and two women, handcuffed, tortured, and raped them all, and then drowned them all.
My
The thing
God.
that makes this more believable is that he then had a quote unquote friend help him dispose of the van. And this man later turned on him, which I'll get to.
Okay.
He didn't turn on him for a while. And during this time, Mr. Pee Wee Gaskins was able to kill quite a few more people, including 45-year-old Silas Yates, who was in a dispute with his ex girlfriend, Suzanne, she and her husband paid Pee Wee $1,500 to kill Silas. Silas had this is another like edgelord moment for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Silas had his throat slit, but Pee Wee later swore he did it with a karate chop.
Okay. Yeah, that's just to make himself feel cool. That's probably
Yeah.
not real.
Yeah. This guy has big samurai sword energy.
Oh yeah, he would
Yeah.
definitely collect a sword for
Yeah.
sure.
He's a sword collector. He also killed Walter Neely's ex. So Walter Neely was the guy who helped him dispose of the van. And so in return, he killed his ex-girlfriend, as well as a man who randomly asked for money for court. He was like, "You're a snitch, you're dead."
Okay.
He was worried that both of them would rat on him because he was running an underage brothel out of his home. Yes.
No.
Mhm. He also murdered 13-year-old Kim Gelkin, one of the underage victims of his brothel, to keep her from ratting on him as well. He also murdered Dennis Bellamy and John Henry Knight, who were both involved in guns and who he shot, I think, for profit and to cover his tracks. Luckily, pretty quickly after Kim's death, if you're having trouble keeping up, because I just listed off 10, she's the 13-year-old that he murdered.
Okay.
In 1975, she's the 13-year-old that he murdered. I have to be even more specific.
Yeah.
Her parents called the police and told them about her association with Pee Wee and his accomplice, Walter. So in 1975, both were arrested and interviewed. And while Pee Wee kept his composure, Walter did not. And this is how we know that the van murders are real, because Walter was like, yes, I helped him dispose of a van.
Okay.
So Walter gave up everything on him, everything on Pee Wee. Pee Wee gave up the rest on his own after he was caught. But at this point, this was enough to put him away forever by itself. From here, Pee Wee and Walter both went to trial. They were both given 8 life sentences, one for each of the victims they were formally charged with killing. There were quite a few accomplices within their scene who helped with one or more of these murders. This is not a Patreon special. I just didn't have time to go into it. But this is like a whole big group of murderers and people who know about it. At first, Pee Wee was given a death sentence for one of the murders, but it was overturned somehow, which I find weird. But anyway, he sat in prison as the quote boss hog for quite some time, living it up as a tough guy in charge, and again, a fucking edgelord. But then in 1982, we're not done. Shit goes
Okay.
down again. So we have the carnival, we've got the Reverend, we have the murder posse, we have all this crazy shit. We have the fucking underage brothel. And then in 1982, shit cracks off again when Pee Wee is asked to take part in a murder for hire plot against a man on death row in the prison where Pee Wee is.
Oh
And
wow,
this
so
man,
he's not done.
no, we're not done. because
Wow.
he does not at this point have a death sentence. And I'm just
Yeah.
going to go ahead and spoil the end. He was put to death. How did that happen? Well, I'm going to tell you.
Oh my
So this
God.
man was on death row for a double murder. The son of one of the victims was not happy with how long it was taking for the state to kill this man, so he
Mm-hmm.
paid Pee Wee to do it. This man wanted, I can't think of any words, revenge for his mother. He wanted to avenge the
Yeah.
death of his mother.
And
So
faster.
yes, the target was a murderer named Rudolph Tyner. He was on death row and Pee Wee wasn't. But again, due to his being smart, potentially charismatic, and having a lot of knowledge about like maintenance and engines and things like that, he was called a maintenance trustee, which means he had access to like most parts of the prison so that he could fix things and, take care of the grounds essentially. But in a
And he
more
gets all
like,
these privileges despite being like a serial killer.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Cool.
So he has access to death row and he starts kind of chatting Rudolph up, becoming friends with him. Then he starts giving him presents, just giving them to him. And in prison, you don't do that. Like there's always a
No.
barter, there's always something the person wants. So he's
Yeah.
giving him food, drinks, cigarettes. It goes to heroin. He starts giving him heroin. Then he starts poisoning the food. And after weeks of trying this, giving him enough to kill a fucking horse. This guy is like he's going to the infirmary. He's sick. And every time they're
Yeah.
like, oh, he's going to die. And like the next day he's fine. And he doesn't make the connection between what Pee Wee's giving him and getting sick because the guy's an idiot or Pee Wee's really convincing. I don't know. So then he decides to change tack. The victim's son has been giving him this poison. Now the victim's
Mm-hmm.
son is going to help him make a bomb.
Oh
And
my
they
God.
build this bomb and they
Oh.
convince Rudolph to let him set up a quote intercom system between his and Pee Wee's cells so they could talk and pass information back and forth. This
How is
intercom was
any of this
actually the bomb.
happening?
Isn't this
Okay.
insane? And this is
Yeah.
verified. So that's the other thing, just to take a step back. People are like, his life story is so crazy. There's no way he killed 80 people in coastal murders and just dumped their body. And it's like, if he's doing it on the coast, he's dumping them in large bodies of water or burying them deep in the
Mm-hmm.
ground. These people are all hitchhikers. They probably don't have a ton of family. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many missing persons in the world and people who've just never been found or disappeared off the face of the
It's hard
earth.
to disprove.
It's impossible. And like all of the things
Yeah.
that he did do that we know he did are equally fucking crazy.
And it's not like Henry Lee Lucas where he's making up really dumb shit. It's like, well, this is plausible.
No,
This sounds plausible.
it's plausible and it matches
Yeah.
everything else. So to me, it's like, I don't know why there's any doubt. I feel
Yeah.
pretty good about saying he killed 90 people plus
Yeah.
90 coastal murders.
Right.
But anyway, he finishes it off with this by building a bomb in prison, convincing this guy Rudolph to let him set it up in his fucking cell. And Rudolph puts his ear to the thing to try to hear Pee Wee. And Pee Wee later said the last thing he heard was me laughing before the bomb went off and blew his fucking face apart, essentially. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So this gained Pee Wee the money that he was promised, but it also gained the son of the murder victim a life sentence. And it got Pee Wee finally his death penalty, which the courts had been wanting to give him for a very long time.
Also, it's like obviously I'm not like pro death penalty, but it's just comparatively to all like the black people who did less, way
Yeah.
less.
When
It's
they
really
choose and
fucking
when they
wild.
choose not to. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
wild
I
when there's
agree.
white literal serial killers who they're like, no, we don't think that he should get like,
Or like
what?
some weird fucking made up technicality to like get him
Yeah.
life instead, you know? It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy. So it only took 9 years after he was given the death penalty for him to be put to death, which is pretty fucking quick.
Yeah.
And when he was put to death, it was in the electric chair, which
Ooh,
is so gnarly,
so old timey.
so old timey. And it's crazy because it was in 1991.
Oh
So
my
like,
God,
I don't
South
know.
Carolina. Is
I
that
know.
where we are?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He was in South Carolina. And Diva, because I know you love this, I'm going to end on this. His last meal, because I know you want to know it.
Yes, I do.
He chose steak and potatoes, followed by a peach cobbler. A simple
Okay.
Southern meal for a
That's
simple Southern
respectable.
murderer. Mm-hmm.
Did they say what kind of steak?
Nope. And they didn't say
Okay.
what he drank, and it really bothered me.
Yeah, you got to wash that down with something for sure.
Maybe a sweet tea? I'm going to go with sweet tea.
Yeah, that would fit the vibe for doing
It would.
peaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steak, potatoes, peach cobbler?
I would
I'd
go
feel
peach
that's sweet tea.
pie rather than peach cobbler. I'm not that into cobbler.
I mean, he's a psycho. What do you want? you know.
Psychos like cobbler.
Yeah, they do. It's a psycho meal. No, I like cobbler. I'm not gonna lie. I love a good cobbler with like
You
a
would eat a cobbler.
I do with like a brown sugar top. Like oh, all day, baby. Shit.
Right. But given the choice between that and pie, like I want the pie.
I'm more of like a berry pie or like a cream pie.
Mm.
I don't love big hunks of cooked fruit because they're slimy. It's like a peach pie isn't really going to do
I
it
love
for
that.
me.
I love that fruit slime. It's so
Oof,
good.
apple pie. I love the flavor of apple pie. I don't like the apples. I'll like suck the goo off and like spit them out. It's disgusting. Anyway, that's more than anybody wanted to know.
Oh,
But give me a good lemon
okay.
meringue. Oh, chocolate chunk pecan. Oof.
Mm-hmm.
Whole bottle of Caro syrup in that fucking thing. I don't even care. All right. Anyway,
All right.
that was Pee Wee Gaskins, that
Pee Wee
motherfucker.
Gaskins. Wow. Okay.
Bitch ass
Very
Gaskins.
American travel murder carnival tale.
And listen, guys, that could be like a 6-part episode.
Yes.
I condensed as best I could. Hope y'all enjoyed.
Yes. Mine is also in the category of could be a 6-part episode.
Oh man. I mean, we knew what we were getting into with this. We knew what we were getting into, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna see your Pee Wee Gaskins and raise you Sam Little.
Oh, fuck you.
Samuel Little. Yeah.
I don't really mean fuck you, but
yeah.
like what the fuck?
I like to write the locations and dates of murders normally, but here my location is everywhere from 1970 to 2012.
Also very American. Very American.
The year range. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All over the country. So Sam Little was born on June 7th, a Gemini, 1940, in a small town south of Atlanta, Georgia, to a teen mom whom he claimed was a sex worker. He did not have much time or contact with her, however, because he was raised by his grandmother outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
I'm not sure about any other difficulties he faced in his childhood. I haven't seen a lot about that other than like, my mom was a sex worker. Okay, well, you weren't even raised by her. So like, I guess just the trauma of like his parents didn't want him kind of thing.
I could see that being really hard because he doesn't get to live with her. And then he probably really focused on like the sex worker thing because why wouldn't he, you know?
Yes, to kind of villainize her. But he was essentially rejected by his parents. So there's that. He was also kind of like someone I would describe as a serial killer from like day one. Like he kind of like came out, he kind of was born like this, born that way. He later recalled how he was aroused like in like super, super, super young ages by women's necks and by hearing anything about strangulation, which apparently happened pretty early for him. He loved it. He's all about strangulation. And he collected photos of women who had been strangled to death, their like bodies from crime magazines, and he would put them up on his bedroom wall, which apparently grandma was fine with.
Like didn't notice or something?
Or didn't notice.
Fuck?
He said they were on the walls. That's his little like thing. You know, you have rock bands, he has like dead women.
I mean, okay, there's a lot of kids in like the 80s who did shit like that, but it was more like metal band posters. It wasn't just like a collection of like actual dead bodies. I don't know. That feels fucking weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd feel better about it if there were also metal band posters, but I think it's just dead bodies.
It's just and a particular type of murder too, which is like big red flag.
At age 13, for stealing a bicycle for a pretty minor crime, he spent a year and a half in the Boys Industrial School, which is a reformatory school, which really, just by the name of it, sounds like it makes serial killers.
Another serial killer factory. Yeah.
Yes, and also a really disproportionately long sentence for a child stealing a bike. It's really, really bad. At age 16, he was arrested for a burglary and sent to another reformatory school that was widely known to subject its residents to horrific abuses, horrific conditions, and overcrowding. So another serial killer made through a quote-unquote reform school, right? And he basically from like time he got out at like 16, 17, for the rest of his life, he is in and out of prison, but it's for robbery and assault, the occasional rape, which we'll talk about as well, and DUI, fraud, like minor charges. So like minor shit keeps him in and out of prison his entire life. There was a chronology of mugshots that is like very complex. Like every year of his life, there's like 6 different mugshots. So I'm not going to go through all the casual arrests because there's too many and it's boring.
Right.
Just to say that there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So by the late 1960s, he had moved to Miami, Florida. At age 30 in 1970, he committed what we know. So actually pretty late. He started murdering at age 30.
That is
Um,
late.
yeah. He committed what we know to be his first murder on New Year's Eve, 1970, when he picked up a young woman named Mary Brosley at a
Mm-hmm.
bar before driving her out to a remote area by the Everglades. There's a couple Everglades murders here.
Oh, okay.
He strangled her to death and buried her in a shallow grave. Um, so all of his victims would be strangled and or bludgeoned and beaten to death. That is his MO 100% of the way.
Okay. Yeah.
There's always either sexual involved or self kind of masturbation involved, because even if he's not outright raping the women, he's definitely aroused by strangulation, like 100%.
Okay.
He's into it sexually. Yeah.
Okay.
He often preyed on vulnerable women experiencing poverty, which I'll talk about again later.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically discarded them like trash. And I want to say also up top here that he wasn't like a particularly genius, careful murderer. Like he's literally like doing a lot of stuff in front of people. He's throwing these women out of like moving cars or into pretty public areas. The bodies are often
Yeah.
found.
The smartest
Um,
thing he did was just who he chose to kill.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really fucking frustrating, this whole story of how effective those choices were.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It really fucking is.
and no one giving a shit. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And also I'll say up top here that and I'm not gonna say the number yet, but he killed a fucking lot of people. So I'm peppering in examples of murders throughout, but I
Mm-hmm.
by no fucking means can I do all of them. So
Right. No, I know.
sadly, I'm just peppering in examples so you get a taste for what's going on.
Right. Yep.
So Sam Little went on to kill several more women in Miami and all over the southeastern United States. He loves a road trip, loves driving around. Many of these victims' identities are still unknown, so I'm going to describe them as just like victims.
Right.
One early victim in the early mid-70s was later described by Sam as a petite, light-skinned black woman around 23 to 24 years old. She was working as a sex worker when he met her at a bar in Miami. He then
Mm-hmm.
drove her to the Everglades, where he strangled her to death and literally threw her out of a car into a trash pile.
Here's the other thing,
Um,
though. Can I just talk about what a fucking moron he is to go to
yeah,
the Everglades and not put her in the swamp? Like, that's your fucking get out of jail free, dude. That's like throwing into a pig
but that
pit.
just
Like,
goes back to what I was just saying, is he's not actually trying
he's
that
not
hard
very
to like
smart.
be a quote unquote good serial killer. Like he's not hiding them.
Yeah.
He almost never hides them. He just literally he always tosses them out of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an idiot.
And he knows that they're going to be found. Like, but he knows that no one cares.
Yeah. No.
So
he's not even an idiot. He's just fucking bold.
yeah, he's not trying. In the sense that like a Ted Bundy or someone is like doing these elaborate things. He's not that.
Right. Right.
He later discarded her belongings, like her purse and stuff. And he said when he did, a white man full on saw him do it and was like, "Hey, okay,
Whatever. Not my business."
He said he thought her name may have been Emily because he saw that name on her University of Miami student ID card. She was also a young student.
Oh.
Yeah, I just find these little details too of his later confessions haunting. Like, oh, I saw
Yeah.
her college ID card, or I saw, or a friend came up and saw her and like talked to her for a while. And it's like, hey, these little details might tell you that they're people.
Right.
They had lives outside of
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he also killed a woman, a black trans woman who went by Marianne in an identical copy and paste fashion, even picking her up from the same bar in Miami, going to the Everglades. So he's doing the same routine night after night.
Jesus. Yeah. And nobody stops him because he can.
Nope. Yeah. He described another victim in 1974 in Savannah, Georgia, as a 19 to 23-year-old black female whom he thought was mentally ill. So again, prying on someone he finds to be in a vulnerable spot.
Right.
He spent the night with her consensually, and the next day took her to a remote parking lot where he raped and choked her, then just left her body in a nearby park. And he said that he wasn't even sure if she was dead.
Wow, because he's just so bold. He knows he's not going to get caught.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck.
He literally doesn't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1976, 1976, he was arrested for raping a woman who actually like was brave enough to report it in 76.
Okay.
And
Good
he was
for her.
convicted and given a sentence of 3 months.
3 whole months for rape.
Uh-huh.
Convicted.
Yep.
God fucking
Yep.
damn it. God fucking
Real
damn it.
Brock Turner sentence right there.
Yeah.
And he probably got longer sentences for burglary and like other shit like that. I'm sure actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
So
fucking garbage.
before long, obviously, he's back at it. He's sexually assaulting and killing women all over the Gulf Coast. In 1982, he killed, he killed victim 26-year-old Patricia Mount. She was found nude in a hayfield in Gainesville, Florida, having been
Jesus.
severely beaten to death.
Ugh.
She was seen the night before leaving with Sam. So again, he also like is very often seen with these women.
With these women, and just nobody cares to follow up, or
Yeah.
nobody gives a fuck. Jesus.
Yeah. Right after this, back to back, he's charged with the second-degree murder of another young woman named Melinda or Mindy Lepre in
Okay.
Mississippi, as multiple sex workers came forward to say that they saw Mindy leaving with him in his car. And survivors also came forward and testified. This is a whole you're gonna like this story. So he's literally there's like a hearing here, right? And they have the sex workers saying he left with Mindy. We saw them together that night. And then there's a whole litany of different survivors that are happen to be sex workers that come forward who describe surviving Sam's attacks in that very area, right? Barely like these harrowing ordeals where they barely escaped
Right.
him.
Jesus
Um,
Christ.
and despite this abundance of evidence, the DA declines to file charges because none of these women are trustworthy, Cindy.
Fuck
Mhm.
that shit. This is
Yes.
why prolific, because nobody cares. It's not
Nobody
because he's
cares.
smart. It's not because he's, taking care. It's
No,
because the
no.
police allowed him to do this. That is it. That's
Yes.
the only reason.
Correct. And it's not like,
Ugh.
oh, no one said anything. A ton of women said shit. And were brave. And everyone was like, well, we don't like your line of work, so we don't believe you. Um,
Ugh.
he was then extradited to Florida to stand trial for the earlier or kind of very slightly earlier murder of Patricia Mount because
Mhm.
witnesses were testified to seeing her get in his car. And this matches the description of the Mindy Lepre murder, but whatever, who cares?
Mhm.
Amazingly, he was acquitted in this trial.
That's
Probably
fuck all of this.
pretty much because no one believes sex workers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here we are. Sometime in 1984, Sam makes his way to Southern California, first landing in San Diego, where, surprise, surprise, he immediately murders a woman. He abducts 22-year-old Lori Barros as she's literally just walking to a friend's apartment by putting her in a chokehold and pulling her into his car. So he also abducts just women totally at random without the sex work kind of premise.
Mhm. Because he's just
Um,
fucking wilding out.
yeah, and he's invincible, and he's kind of right, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
to think that. So Lori Barros actually survives,
Mhm.
amazingly.
That's great.
Um, yeah. I don't know how she survives, but there's lots of survivor stories throughout this too. Like these women fight back very often, and I'm
Yeah.
sure lots of them did that got killed as well, but we don't know. Um, he's then found by cops right after Lori's escape with another woman who was nearly dead, having been severely strangled and beaten by Sam. And this is in the same spot where Lori was ultimately found,
Mhm.
escaped. And for both of these attempted murders, he's actually charged. They both come forward, Lori and this other woman, and tell their stories bravely. But he's convicted of just assault and false imprisonment, two separate
That's
charges.
it.
And
That's
he
it.
gets 2.5 years for trying to kill these two women.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. So 1987. Yeah, it's frustrating.
I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yep. 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 Yep.
All right.
In
All right.
1987, he gets out of this very brief stint in prison and moves into South LA. Um,
Okay.
but he will also periodically take little itinerant road trips throughout the country, going back to his old stomping grounds in Ohio and Mississippi to kill there and then come back. But he's based in
Okay.
South LA through all of the late 80s, 90s, and kind of early 2000s. And in this era, especially the 80s and 90s, South LA, as you may know, was experiencing a lot of poverty and drug addiction issues,
Mm-hmm.
for which it was horrifically over policed, which just escalated all the problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of issues in this area that are being exacerbated by cops, and vulnerable women in this era are his prey. And I just want to say also, I realized there's two other whole serial killers targeting these exact group of women in
Mm-hmm.
South LA in this exact time period: Lonnie Franklin, the Grim Sleeper, and Chester Turner.
Wow. I
So if
actually
you're,
always get Lonnie Franklin and Samuel Little mixed up
yeah,
because I think they came like I don't know if their captures came out at the same time or if their
yeah,
MOs just
that's
really
true.
similar or both. Like I feel like it was
They did
both.
come to light around the same time, and they were active in the exact same place and time. So,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense
like,
then. Okay.
yeah, like it's really terrifying to imagine being a Black
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable woman of any type, or just a Black woman period in South LA in this time.
Right.
um so I'm going to get through to some of that, back to the LA murders, 80s murders, but he kills nonstop continually. I just don't have time. um
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get to boop, 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 to 2012 is where we're going to fast forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine a bunch more murders happened. In 2012, 72-year-old Samuel is extradited from back to LA from Kentucky, where he's found at a homeless shelter, after genetic genealogy actually matches the genetic evidence, to him in three murders. Obviously, his DNA is in the system.
Right. Right.
That of Carol Alford in 1987, and the murders of Audrey Nelson and Guadalupe Apodaca in 1989, all in LA. And
Wow.
in 2014, he was tried for these three murders,
Mm-hmm.
that he was genetically matched to, found guilty, and given 3 life sentences without parole.
Wow.
There's so much more. Okay.
Oh my God. I know. I was
Um,
like, you're not done. You're not even
no,
close to done.
that's the prequel. That's to the main thing.
Ugh,
So at
okay.
his trial, many survivors of him, testified about their harrowing ordeals, almost being murdered by Little. These included Lori Barrows from San Diego, who I just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so many stories. I only picked a couple here to highlight.
Oof.
But one woman named Hilda, whom he attacked in Pascagoula, Mississippi, in 1980, after he solicited her as a sex worker. She came to, like, went unconscious and then came to as Little was beating her again and again, went back out,
Jesus.
and then came to as he was beating her and submerging her in water. She said he was punching her in the face, dunking her underwater, lifting her up again, and repeat.
How the fuck did she get away?
She just woke up in a hospital. She doesn't know
Wow. So he probably just
how.
thought she was dead.
Yeah, he probably dumped her, thought she was dead, and someone, a good Samaritan, like, brought her
Found
in.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's very lucky.
Yeah, she told police a burglar attacked her because she didn't want to admit to her family that she had had to take up work as a sex worker out of financial need.
That's so fucking sad.
Yeah.
That's so fucked
Uh,
up.
and again, it's really fucking frustrating that his MO keeps
Mm-hmm.
working for him.
Yeah.
A victim named Leela, also from Pascagoula, was attacked by Little in 1981 after he picked her up in the same fashion for sex work. He punched her out and choked her, but she fought back viciously. She actually kept escaping his car, and he kept pulling her back, like, repeatedly.
Oh God, dude. That's
Yeah,
terrifying.
it's like a
Good for
horror
her
movie.
though. Yeah, it is.
She actually managed to escape out of the car's trunk, like she crawled back through the
Like
car.
through. God
Hmm.
damn. That's wild.
She ran as fast as she could to her neighborhood, to her, like, people, and then they took her to a hospital. She said no police ever came to take her report, and literally she said no one cared
Wow. I mean, I'm not
that
at
this
all
happened to her.
surprised. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard that story a gajillion fucking
yeah,
times.
yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
His attorney actually protested these witnesses talking about their survivor story because the attorney said that it was unrelated to those of the
Mhm.
murders for whom he was specifically on trial. And to that, I'm like, holy shit, it could not be more related.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Jesus, dude. Fuck. Ugh.
Um,
Okay.
are these crows
Sorry.
really loud? Can you hear them? They're
Oh,
so
that
loud.
was yours? I thought it was at my house. That's so funny.
No, they're the loudest crows.
Guys,
Anyway,
there's crows. We have nature in LA.
it's a
Never forget
murder.
it.
Get it?
Ah,
My husband likes to make that joke about a murder of crows so
a
much. Okay.
murder of crows. Wait, did they make that joke in the movie Clue?
I don't know.
Oh, I watched it last night, but I fell asleep. but something made me feel like they did. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. If they're too loud, I can shut my door. Like the
No, you're
crows.
fine.
All right. In 2014, Sam, even though he had always claimed he was innocent and throughout his trial, or sorry, in 2018,
Mhm.
he actually says yes to an interview with James Holland, a Texas Ranger, and two FBI analysts, so kind of like a confession team. And
Mhm.
he decides, fuck it. He's just going to be honest, and he begins confessing. He ultimately, over I think 650 hours worth of interviews, he
Wow.
confesses in pretty decent detail to 93 murders in 19 states.
Holy shit.
This makes him the official most prolific serial killer in US history. This is why I wanted to do him, because I figured why not go to the top of the list.
But
Um,
okay, hold on. Not that I'm like
defending
trying
Pee
to
Wee.
defending Pee Wee, but I think that if he killed as many people as he said he did, then he's over 100. But like,
Then he
it's
would be number one.
debatable. He would be
Right.
number one.
Well, the
I'm just
reason
saying.
Sam Little is officially number one is because, unbelievably, and unlike cases like Pee Wee, or especially unlike Henry Lee Lucas, investigators are 1000% sure these are all credible confessions, all 93.
That's fucking insane.
And
That's
there's
insane.
never been one time where he said shit that wasn't like verifiable, like, or didn't track. Like he's been, when shit gets verified, it's verified. Like they have no reason to think he's lying
That's fucking
whatsoever.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
Yeah. He's just honest. He's an insane monster who just was like, I'll tell you everything. And seems to enjoy it, which some of them do, seems to enjoy talking about it.
Yeah.
So in some cases, he gave the names of his victims, but in many cases, he couldn't remember anything really specific about them. And for many of the cases, I'm not sure if it was all, but in a lot of them, he made these very eerie paintings or
Hmm.
drawings, which sometimes he would title with first names only, and sometimes with like these little like Atlanta Black or like Girl by the Airport. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
and
seen
they're
those.
really eerie. Obviously, they're not great likenesses, but in some cases where they have been identified, they do look like them. So they're like good
Yeah.
enough that they could work.
It's just so
But
scary
yeah,
that
it's
he's like,
gross.
yeah.
It's gross. It's gross. It's gross. But weirdly helpful, but also gross still.
Hmm.
So these confessions resulted in 4 more murder charges in Ohio and 1 more in Texas. For all of them, he just gets additional life sentences and not death because they want to keep him talking, basically. They don't want to kill him.
Yeah.
In On December 30th, 2020, it was announced that Sam Little died, I believe at
Ugh.
age 74 or so. 76. A cause of death was not released, but he had been in bad health in general. Who knows? It was also like peak COVID time, so it could have been that.
Yeah, let's hope.
But yeah,
Let's hope it
let's hope.
hurt.
Let's hope it was terrible.
Yeah.
Since his death, investigators have worked tirelessly to continue trying to identify the remaining victims, especially for which they have obviously confessions and like sketches, but no real victim name. And
Hmm.
also to link Sam Little with additional unsolved cold cases. But they think the 93 might be it, but who knows? He might not remember some, right?
Yeah.
In some cases, all we have is a sketch. Other bodies are unidentified, and we have like a digital reconstruction of their face. But we think they're a Sam Little victim, but we don't know the identity. So there are all kinds of different situations here.
Hmm.
In 2021, the LA Times ran a story with information about 16 unknown victims from his time killing in LA in the 80s and 90s that they are still trying to identify, which is wild.
That's
As
fucking crazy.
Yeah. One, just as an example of the 16, one LA victim was a 25-year-old Black woman he met in a halfway house in South LA. They had a brief fling, but she rebuked him and kind of dumps him. So he strangled her and dumped her in a trash pile behind an auto supply store. Just to paint a picture of what these murders look like. And the fact that he's, again, dumping them in trash, public places,
That's fucking
somehow
crazy.
the case never gets anyone to give a shit about it.
That's so fucking wild that like nobody
Yeah.
gives a shit.
It's also thought that a lot of these may not have even gotten autopsies, and they were just written off as overdoses because of the time and place,
That's
and
fucked
because
up.
they were being profiled because they're Black women, right?
Right.
Um,
You
yeah.
know, okay, I'm gonna tell you something when we're done. when you're done, but
Okay.
not until then. I don't want to butt in. So,
Okay. But yeah, and also it makes sense that that could have happened because he strangled them, so it wouldn't have been super violent, like stab or shooting, right?
right.
Like if you didn't give a shit, then you could just be like, oh,
Right.
she just
Right, right,
passed
right.
out or what. In 2019, a woman recognized one of Little's sketches as her mom, Zena Marie Jones,
Oh no.
who was murdered when she was 5 years old in 1990 in Memphis. The story
Oof.
of where she was picked up and the kind of details of his confession confirmed this for her even more. And in 2022, DNA actually confirmed it. So there's a story about her kind of
Oh, that's
discovering
really
that and like
sad.
processing that. That's really wild. Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Um, yeah. As recent, and there's like even more than this, more stories, and I just picked a few of people finding like the remains and putting it together with a sketch and be like, oh, it's my loved one. Like it's really fucked up how many pieces are shattered and like spread around because no one gave a shit about these women
Yeah. Yeah.
at all. As
Uh,
recently as May 2023, so a few months ago, the
mhm.
remains of a victim of Little's in Macon, Georgia in 1977, who was a Jane Doe, was actually identified as 20-year-old Yvonne Pless, and her family was notified. So it
Okay.
is
Wow.
very
It's
much still
still going.
happening. Yep.
Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
yeah. So if you want to see really detailed confessions and sketches for a lot of the unknown victims, go to the dps.texas.gov website. For some reason, a bunch of them are there. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's you can see them online. You can see all the sketches. So if you're an online sleuth or you're someone someone from this time period who was a black young woman, and also he did kill some white women too, but
He did kill some
uh,
white women.
yes, but
Yeah.
obviously he's targeting black women the most because of obvious reasons. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I this is my personal story if you don't mind me coming in here.
please.
I have looked through the sketches of his victims at some of the white women because my aunt, who was a
Mm.
heroin addict, went missing in Long Beach around the time that he was active
Oh,
and her body's never been found. Like we don't know what happened to her. We don't know if it was an OD. We don't know if she was murdered.
what
She was
year?
in I think 92, 91, 92, something like
Mm.
that.
Yeah,
Um, so
interesting.
it would have been, you know, the time frame it could have worked. So
And the
I've looked,
victim profile potentially,
yeah, she was a heroin addict and she was in the sex trade, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And I've looked because my family has never found her. Like my grandma died not knowing what happened to her daughter. So
Wow. And
yeah,
there's Lonnie Franklin, and like I said, there's all these other serial killers too that are
yes,
candidates. It's
yes,
a
I've
really
looked.
dangerous time to be a vulnerable woman in LA.
Yeah, yeah, I have looked through. I've spent hours doing this, not just
Wow.
Samuel Little, but anytime a new one comes out and they've got more information, I
Yeah.
go through it. I go through it. No luck
Wow.
so far. No luck so far, but
That's
still
crazy. That's
looking.
horrible.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, so I had to throw that in because I'm like, he did kill some white people. I know because
He
I wouldn't
did.
have spent the
Yes.
time if he didn't. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But the overarching common denominator was that they were vulnerable and,
Yes. Yes.
experiencing a rough
Of
time.
course.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So, anyway, fucked up.
Ooh,
Yeah.
there's some
Oof.
fucked up guys. Yeah. And both
There really are.
both created through reformatory schools, also an American institution.
Weirdly, yeah, both
Yeah.
of them did go through that, which is fucking crazy.
Charles Manson
Uh,
too.
yeah, dude, I forgot about that.
Hmm.
That's wild. Don't send your kids to reformatory school. All the
No,
kids I
a
know
lot
that
of
went,
those are shut down.
no, but like they have like military school still and
Right,
like
right.
drug
Versions
rehab
of
and
that. Yeah.
yeah, they're all fucking terrible. They're all terrible. Good God. Okay, we have two more of these this week. This is fucking
Whew.
intense. Woof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100 and
Uh,
almost 200 victims later, ready for
yeah.
another round
God
of this.
damn.
Whew.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this is going to be coming out on the 4th of July. So if you don't listen
Hmm.
to it on the holiday, we won't hold it against you. But
Happy
tune
4th of
in.
July.
Yeah, have a great time. Don't blow your hands off or any other extremities.
Cindy's
Uh,
really patriotic, so she's really reverent on that day.
yeah,
It's really serious.
I am. It's so true.
She's gonna be like
Um,
saluting a flag, just like wearing red, white, and blue.
I have a mom on our baseball team who keeps being like, we need to figure out how to take the American flag back from like the conservatives and like stop making it this like hate symbol. Like we need to bring it back and like make the American
Mm.
flag like reflective of like love and acceptance and like, and I love the idea, but I'm like, girl, it is so far gone. We have to burn it down and
Yeah.
replace it. Like there's
I
no
don't it
way.
wasn't Republicans that ruined it. It was itself. Like
Right.
it was
But
the
she
country.
wants to like make it like reflective of the side of America that she envisions, which is one of like she's like one of the most lovely people,
I
honestly.
mean, some people like to have nice ideas about what they would like the country to be, and that's sweet, and that's good for
I
them.
know. I
But
know.
it's more of a goal and less of a reality.
Yes, very unfortunately. If everybody
Yeah.
was more like her, I think we'd be a lot better
Oh,
in a
sure.
lot
Yeah.
better situation, which is really lovely. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that. Like, I don't even wear my American flag bikini ironically anymore. I'm like, no,
Mm.
there's no way. Rory tried to buy a fucking Easy Up pop tent with the American flag on it because it was like half price. And I was like, you pay full price. Like,
Mm.
we're not doing that.
Don't even
No,
want it on the bargain bin. No.
he could not. He was so mad at me. I was like, are you fucking for real? I'm not popping that at
I
the
have a
beach.
Norwegian flag. I do own a Norwegian flag. It's my
That's
moment of
fine.
nationalism.
We're
And
not talking about no.
well, I'm just saying that's my only like little nationalist thing is for Norway.
Yeah,
And my husband wants to get a pirate flag and fly it, like with a place where you would put American flag. Like,
I like
all
that.
right, all right,
Yeah, I'm
that
into
can be
that.
our nation. Yeah, pirate nation.
Pirate Nation. I like that.
Yo ho.
Fun. Did you just say yo ho? You
I
did.
did. Yo
Good
ho. Yep.
God. Oh, I thought you said YOLO, and I was like, no, she said
No.
yo ho.
Yo ho. A pirate's life for me.
Using pirates. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, guys. Anyway, have a great 4th of July. We'll see you on the other side with 2 more heavy hitting murderers.
Mm-hmm.
And until then,
Stay.
off our
There.
list. Good album. Bye.